Today I'm going to attempt to redraw Ben 10 fusions from the episode Dr. Animo in the Mutant Ray. And I use the word attempt because I really enjoy drawing, I really do, but just because I enjoy something doesn't mean I'm good at said thing. But I will still try my hardest to draw the best piece of artwork to my capabilities. And why I draw, I'm going to talk about the fusion I'm drawing and talk in general about fusions in Ben 10. Of course, I'll also talk about my artistic process while drawing because if you're drawing, I think you have to do that for like a drawing video. So the three fusions I'm drawing today are going to be StinkArms, a fusion of forearms and Stinkfly. Diamond Matter, a fusion of the best alien in Ben 10, Diamond Head, and the stupid little frog thing called Gray Matter. Then finally we have HeatJaws, a combination of Heat Blast and RipJaws. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and if you watch this video and for some weird reason actually enjoyed my artwork, then comment down below Ben 10 fusions you'd want me to draw, and I'll post them in my community tab. It may take a little time, but I will get to them eventually. So without any further ado, let's jump straight into this video. The first fusion for today is going to be StinkArms, and for most of these designs, I'm going to keep the same general look and feel of these fusions. I will make some changes here and there, but for the most part, the same concept of these fusions will be the same. And when I mean concepts for the fusion, I mean most of the fusions shown in Dr. Animo and the Mutant Ray follow the same design principle, and it's pretty noticeable with StinkArms and HeatJaws because it's just one alien with the features of another alien attached onto it. So this fusion is really just forearm, and you give him Stinkfly's eyes, wings, and tail. So it's really just forearms with some features of Stinkfly. HeatJaws, okay, that's a stupid name, okay? HeatJaws, okay. HeatJaws also follows the same approach, and it's pretty noticeable in this episode. And after all that explaining and yapping, that's what the concept of these fusions are, at least in this episode. It's really just taking the main body of one of the aliens and adding features from another alien onto it and calling it a fusion. These fusions really take more of a Frankenstein approach, and if you want more of a good explanation of this, then go watch this video of the ink tanks where O.R. Ash basically describes different types of fusions. It will be in the description down below, but this fusion and HeatJaws is more of a Frankenstein type fusion. This isn't my personal favorite style of fusion, but it isn't bad, I just don't like it that much. But talking more about StinkArms as a fusion in general, this fusion is really just a horrible fusion, not so much design-wise, but more in a practical sense. Stinkfly's wings can't support the mass of forearms, and I don't think forearms would be that aerodynamic anyways, and forearm strength gets weakened due to being fused with a weaker alien. So overall, this alien is just a weaker version of forearms that can't even fly. And I think this episode did this for the sake of making Ben want to revert his Omnitrix back to normal, because all his fusions in this episode hindered him more than it helped him. And I think that's the point of the episode, but I haven't rewatched it, and I don't want to rewatch it, because I'm lazy. Oh man, I'm actually really lazy. I procrastinate a lot, that's my problem. And it's pretty funny because in this episode, fusions are seen in a more negative light, and this is because they take two aliens who are really strong in their own right and really strong in their own perspective fields and fuse them together and make of more of an average alien that isn't really good in either field, but just more of the in-between, kind of like the mean in math or something, or the average, or who cares? I'm not a mathematician, okay? I don't care. This in turn gives fusions a more negative connotation, and it's pretty funny because Ben 10,000 from the Omniverse series uses fusions as his main source of power and thing, and they're seen as more of a positive thing in that show, so in this episode, they're seen as a very big hindrance to Ben, and they're seen in a pretty negative light compared to Omniverse where they're seen as more of a cool thing and a powerful thing. So overall, I just think it's funny how fusions in this episode are seen as more of a net negative, and in Omniverse are seen more as a positive thing. But moving on to more of an artistic point of view for this fusion, here I really didn't change much for the fusion, so I kept it pretty much the same. The only thing I changed was getting rid of the tail because I didn't want to draw it. I am extremely lazy. And I made his second pair of arms more like Stinkfly's legs so I could put more of Stinkfly into the fusion. I also changed the pattern of Stinkfly's wings, and that isn't for any good reason. I just did it because I was really lazy. You see a pattern here, I'm lazy. So I pretty much kept it the same in the general feel of this fusion, but I did change small details to make it different from the original fusion. So in this drawing, you can kind of see my art style more, and this art style has more thick lines compared to the show. This is just my personal preference, but I prefer more thicker lines compared to thinner lines. And that's really only for more static images. I do prefer more thin line art for animation because I think it looks better in motion, but for a drawing like this, I prefer more thicker lines. I don't know why, it's just what I prefer. I also went with a bodybuilding pose here, and the thing I should have done is get a reference photo so the proportions don't look messed up. But for some reason, my brain refused to go just get a reference photo. I don't know why. So the shoulder area just looks extremely weird, and it's a little unsymmetrical, but aside from that, I like this drawing, I guess, as much as I can. I don't really like my drawings. I don't really like these videos I make. I think they're horrible. I don't know why you subscribed. But let's move on to the next one, which will be Diamond Matter.
Your StinkArms?
So this next fusion is between the GOAT Diamond Head and that other alien. What's his name? Gray Matter, I think his name. No one cares about him. We only care about Diamond Head. And this fusion is probably the best one in terms of design. This is because it feels like an actual fusion between two aliens, not just a Frankenstein. Oh, I keep saying Frankenstein. I'm obsessed with Ben 10. And not just a Frankenstein type fusion. From my recollection of this episode, I think Diamond Head's crystals were weakened from being fused with gray matter. Also, this fusion is really small, so it makes sense that this fusion weakens the potency of Diamond Head's crystals. I would also imagine that mixing a Galvan's intelligence with the intelligence of a Petrosapien would result in dulling the intelligence for this fusion overall. It's kind of like merging a super genius like Walter White with like more of an average person like me, and that would result in bringing the intelligence of the super genius, aka Walter White, down because you're fusing it with a normal person, well, below normal person's intelligence because you're fusing it with me. So like me and Walter White would be fused together. The intelligence would go down like way, like it'd go down a lot because I'm really stupid. So it'd take like a low number, a high number, add them together, divide by 2, and that's kind of what happens with the intelligence of this. What am I talking about? What am I talking about? Let's just get back on topic. So I just imagine the diamonds from Diamond Head are weaker, and the intelligence from gray matter is also brought down due to being fused. So this fusion is just a small little frog with above average intelligence, which is pretty funny, okay? Just imagine you just find this little small frog thing with like crystals, and it has like decent intelligence. That'd be pretty funny just to find in the wild. But for this drawing, I kept it around 99% faithful to the original design because there really wasn't much to change. This design is really just a solid design, and fun fact about this drawing, this was actually the last one I drew out of the 3. But for the sake of keeping the drawings in the order they appeared in the episode, this one would go in the middle and HeatJaws would go last, even though I drew HeatJaws second. Anyways, I just think this one works better as the middle drawing for this video because I really changed HeatJaws design compared to everyone else, so I really want that drawing to be the climax of this video. But onto a more artistic viewpoint for this design, I again use thicker lines and make sure that I use a dark aqua color for the crystal line art because the show does the same thing. If you don't know, like for fire and like the crystal effects, they use a different type of line art than black to show it's kind of different and everything. I also went back and redrew the feet. I redrew both the feet while I wasn't recording because I hated how they looked. But yeah, I just didn't like how they looked, so I went back and fixed it. But that's pretty much it for the artistic viewpoint for this drawing. There's really not much to say, it's just me drawing. Everything else I did was just basic coloring, shading, blending, and adding some light onto it. I think for a drawing I spent like maybe 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours working on. I think it turned out pretty okay. I have nothing more to say, so let's move on to the final drawing, which is the fusion of HeatJaws. This fusion is my least favorite out of the 3 shown in this episode because it's just RingsOfGeonosis with Heat Blast's limbs. They don't even try with this one. This is the laziest one by far, and also the least practical because RingsOfGeonosis needs water to survive, so it needs to go get water, and using Heat Blast's fire leads you to drying yourself up even more, so it's just like 2 negatives coming together to work against you. So this fusion just sucks, and I think this plays more into the theme that fusions are bad in this episode. At least in this episode, fusions do suck. And if I was Ben in this episode, I would 100% want to revert my Omnitrix back to normal because fusions absolutely sucked every time I tried to use them. Getting onto the drawing, for this drawing, I did take some liberties and redesigned a good chunk of it. I did want to keep the main idea of this fusion though. I didn't want to divert from the original idea of the fusion too much, so I did keep the main concept for this fusion, and that concept is basically just RingsOfGeonosis' body with Heat Blast features added onto it. I changed most of the body to resemble Heat Blast's body with molten rock slowly climbing up RingsOfGeonosis' neck and feet. I also tried to show that the molten rock and lava are slowly growing and taking over RingsOfGeonosis' body, like spreading around. I also added more fire extruding out of this fusion's body like the original did, with some fire extruding out of the back of the neck. Also, RingsOfGeonosis' head is sticking out of the molten ring that Heat Blast head usually is in, and his eyes are also the same lava texture as the original Heat Blast, like the slit and everything. I copied that for RingsOfGeonosis' head. Looking back at this drawing, the one thing I wish I did was make his fingers actually RingsOfGeonosis' fingers, with Heat Blast's like lava and molten slowly climbing up the fingers, so it's kind of like taking over, keeping the same aspect I did for the rest of the drawing. Worst thing about this fusion actually is probably just the fire. I've never been good at drawing fire, still not good at drawing fire, so I think that's the weakest part of this fusion. Hopefully the more I draw, the better I'll get at drawing fire, but for this drawing I think it's okay. It's passable. For this drawing, it's passable. I really did enjoy drawing this one and all the drawings for this video. Hopefully this does okay, like at least gets like 1,000 to 2,000 views. I would love to make more of these videos, but if it doesn't, then I'll just stick to my usual content and just probably post my drawings in my community tab. But with that, the drawing for this video is done and we can move on and you can take a good look at this drawing. So that's it, the 3 fusions from Dr. Animo and the Mutant Ray redrawn by someone who isn't really good at drawing. Personally, I think these drawings turned out pretty okay, nothing amazing, nothing horrible, probably just below average like everything else in my life, but this video is for more me to experiment with different types of videos, still with the same concept of like Ben 10 and stuff. I also just wanted a reason to spend a few hours drawing Ben 10 aliens, because that's the only thing I really like drawing. So comment down below if you want another one of these videos, and if you enjoy my artwork, then also comment down below a Ben 10 fusion you want me to draw, and I'll probably just put it in my community tab. That's if I get any requests. Hopefully this video doesn't bomb. I'm not even gonna look at the views. I'm just gonna like work on the next video, put that out, and just like put this to the back of my mind so I don't even stress about it. And with that, I'm gone, just like the live action Ben 10 movie. That's right, I just got the news like I think a few days before recording this or something. The Ben 10 live action movie was canceled.